The Betrayed.
Welcome back to The Betrayed. I'm Gina Beck.
This is Drew Williams.
Thank you for listening, liking, commenting, and subscribing. We appreciate y'all.
Yeah, thank you all, and Happy New Year again.
If you have a betrayal story and you would like to be heard, message us on the Betrayed Facebook or Instagram or email. All of that information is in the description below.
Yeah, absolutely. Feel free anytime. How are you, Gina?
I'm kind of sick. I'm kind of stuffy, so bear with me, everybody. And I think you're pretty sick, right?
Yeah, it's made it all the way down the coast, like everybody is.
Yeah,
I haven't had a
everybody
cold
is.
in
It's
years.
crazy.
Yeah. It feels like everybody is sick, but yeah, it goes around. It is what it is. This is the first day feeling better, so it's good.
Yeah, I started feeling better yesterday. Today it's a little better, but like I'm getting stuffy here and there still.
Yeah, I feel it. I'm the same way. We'll push through it.
So I got a message. I totally interrupted you.
No.
I'm sorry.
All I said
What'd you
is
say?
push through it. No, you said you got a message.
Yeah, I got a message from Mark. Hey, Mark. He asked, why is it that society is so harsh on a man, 20 plus years of age, talking or engaging with females under 18, but when the genders have been swapped and the male is underage and the female is 20 plus, it's passed over?
I think it's something me and you have discussed, and other members of the group have before. It's a double standard, especially if she's good looking, because there's that whole he got one type thing, and I get that mentality, but at the same time, it's child abuse. Like it's it's child abuse.
And I think more women do it than people think. They just either don't get caught, or when they do get caught, it's a really big deal and you see it in the news, but it's not as often as when
It's
a man does
actually
it.
higher than I thought it was when I would look it up. These were stats I got from the National Center for Victims of Crime, and granted, their stats go back from like the late 90s up to pretty now. So they're pretty broad, but it says some perpetrators are female. It is estimated that women are the abusers in about 14% of cases reported among boys and 6% of cases reported among girls.
Wow.
So it is. I think it's far. It happens far more often than people think it does.
Yeah, it's just not highlighted. I mean, I when I see that happening, it's definitely when I'm scrolling through my newsfeed, it's mostly men, like all the time. And when I do see a woman, I'm highly surprised. And it's usually someone who I see a lot of teachers or
It's interesting.
like a college
This
professor,
leads into
stuff
some
like
more
that.
stats from it. Is approximately one third of all offenders are themselves juveniles.
Oh,
Yeah. 23% of
so
reported cases of child sexual abuse are perpetrated by individuals under the age of 18.
that is insane. And see, these we've talked about statistics before, but I don't think we've mentioned these ones. And it's just crazy. It blows my mind because we would never think it would be like that.
Well, I've got a couple more from it. Only 14% of children who suffered sexual abuse were violated by an unknown perpetrator. And this leads into another.
Hmm.
60% of children are sexually abused by someone in their social circle. I couldn't say that. Hence, the phrase stranger danger is actually a misleading term.
I would like to highly agree with that because I think that most of the stories that come my way and most of the stories that I see, I notice that it's someone that they know and it's someone within the family, and it's really scary.
Yeah, there's some stuff I know. I'm just going through all the different stats they have here, and it's a study conducted in 1986 found that 60% of women who suffered sexual abuse by a family member also reported rape or attempted rape after the age of 14. Recent studies in 2000, 2002, 2005, and 2010 have all concluded similar results.
Wow. Yeah, those are some interesting numbers, and I think people should really listen to those because it's very important that people think it won't happen to them or it won't happen to my child. It can happen to anybody.
Yeah, if you go to, and we'll link it in the description, go to National Center for Victims of Crime. All these stats are up there. They're updated. I don't know how often, but there's a lot of good pretty good statistics that you can't argue with on there. And they're actually pretty scary.
That is scary. And a lot of young boys play online games, and I saw that Microsoft released a new tool Thursday that scans online chats for people seeking to sexually exploit children. It's part of a broader push by the technology industry to crack down on the dangers facing children online. So it's codenamed Project Artemis. The service scans historical chats for patterns that indicate a predator is grooming children for sexual abuse. I'll link the article that I found in the description so you guys could check it out and see more into it. But I think that that's amazing, and they should do that with more, with everything. Like if a man or a woman is talking to a child, it should be caught right away. You know, Microsoft developed the
If that's
tool.
all that tool is doing, it's amazing. But I've seen other articles that point out that it might be just a way for them to collect data on everybody.
You think so?
I don't know, with the weird conspiracy stuff out there, maybe. I don't know. I hope it has real good intent, but
If you're listening, let us know below what you think. I think I've been saying hashtag more punishment for sexual predators. When this caught my eye, it was something that I thought was leading in that direction. But if it is what you're saying, then that's ridiculous. But I'll definitely keep up on it and see like what happens with this. I won't. When I see stuff like this, I like to see how it prospers. So hopefully it does. But they say that child sexual exploitation and abuse online and the detection of online child grooming are weighty problems. But we are not deterred by the complexity and the complexity of all the issues because there's just so many. And Microsoft developed the tool in collaboration with the Meet Group, Roblox, Kick, and Thorn. Microsoft is making it available to third-party online services that have chat functionality and use Thorn, a nonprofit that builds technology to protect children from sexual abuse online. So they are working with Thorn, and Thorn is a very
yeah, as I say, that's a
reliable
really
and great
that's a
organization.
deep rooted organization. That's actually sounds like a good thing, especially like if Kick maybe they're really trying to finally clean stuff up on there. So
Hopefully, I mean, if you,
yeah, if anyone
it's
has any
crazy how much
information, link
money.
us.
Yeah, it's crazy how much money some of these apps get. So if you're getting that much money, you need to put into the safety of the children that are using it. I think 100%. Thorn will begin licensing the technology to other services this week, though. And Dr. Haney Farid, the academic behind Microsoft's photo DNA tool, LED development of the project Photo DNA scans images of evidence of child sexual exploitation. That is so crazy.
No, it's awesome to
That's
hear.
amazing. That's
I
amazing.
hope
Yeah.
that it actually works and they can actually start catching because they're obviously. I mean, almost every episode we talk about that we're talking about some app, whether it be a game, an app, or some other social media being
Apps.
used, or all of them. It's almost like a toolbox for them. So it's good to see that maybe there's people on the inside that are really trying to do because those are the people that are going to make the biggest difference.
Yeah,
There's
apps are
going into that,
insanely
talking
dangerous.
about online stuff. January 1st of this year, New Mexico Task Force takes aim at online child sex crimes. Images and
Wow.
videos of sexual abuse don't only exist on the dark corners of the internet. They are hiding in plain sight across New Mexico. From January through November 1st, there were 977 investigations in the state into reports of adults creating, possessing, or distributing images of child sex crimes and committing other crimes against children over the internet. The number of experts is more than double from the numbers last year. And it goes in and it talks
Wow.
about one of the prosecutors. These are individuals that, generally speaking, are extremely dangerous, and a lot of times there is misnomers that these are just images. She later says prosecutors do not like the term commonly used child pornography because it likens images to abuse of legal, somewhat regulated industry of adult pornographic content. Moran makes it plain. Many of these images are children being raped.
That's so disgusting. And I remember specifically one time we had a man that was in Oregon and he had sent a decoy a picture of his niece with nothing on and her legs were open and he was talking about how old she is and she was very young. I'm not gonna go into crazy detail because I don't want to get in trouble because this is gonna be on YouTube as well. And it was just very explicit. And so when we get something like that, and especially when he was so honest about what he had done with her, we turned it in right away. And we called the police in his area, and they were able to confiscate the phone, track it, and deal with the investigation themselves. So hearing that, that exactly kind of leads into what Microsoft is doing and how they would be able to detect things like that, especially on Kick, because that happened on Kick, what I'm talking about. And so that is crazy what you said, with all of the child pornography stuff. It is child pornography, and like, if people are sending things like that to each other, I hope they start being able to detect it more and more.
Kind of weaves both these
It's
articles weave
disgusting.
back and forth. It has some more stats in here. It says some people tend to believe such images involve children in faraway places, meaning like Russia, some type of Eastern Europe, things like that. 90% involve
Wow,
children in the US.
that is way too many. It's a big number.
Yeah.
Well, I want to lead into this. I it came to me. It got sent to me on Instagram from a supporter, and Michelle Knight was in a hurry one night. She was racing to meeting about the young son she lost to foster care and hoped to reclaim when she stopped at a store to ask for directions. A man she recognized as the father of a friend offered her help and a ride in his car, but first he said he wanted to swing by his house to grab his daughter and to show Knight some puppies that he had. But there were no puppies when they arrived. Instead, Knight's decision to get in the car and enter the home began an unimaginable horror, making her the first of three young women kidnapped and held hostage and sexually assaulted by Ariel Castro. In Knight's case, for nearly 11 years before the startling rescue from his Cleveland residence in 2013, he said, "You're not going to leave for a long time." And it just, she can visualize everything to this day. It's like very traumatizing. It broke my heart seeing reading this.
I would
And
imagine
then
a
he
lot of.
start like,
Oh, I'm sorry. No,
go ahead.
I know
Sorry.
exactly what case you're talking about. This is a horrific case. This made major headlines when it went broke big because they were held hostage for one of them was like a decade plus because he fathered children, right?
Yeah. And the woman's stories of recovery in a broadcast airing Friday at 9 just recently. And he said that he starts undressing himself. I drop to the floor, begging him to let me go, begging him, saying, "I need to get to my son. This can't happen." Knight then turned 21, and the other two separately kidnapped as teens, Amanda Berry and Gina De Jesus. Each have reclaimed their lives after the years held captive by Castro, who killed himself in 2013 while serving a sentence of life in prison plus 1,000 years after pleading guilty to 937 counts, including kidnapping and rape. Barry has hosted a news segment about missing people in Ohio, and De Jesus has been working in a nonprofit to help the families of missing people. Knight, now married and a best selling author, has become an advocate for victims of domestic violence and human trafficking. "I want to be that voice of the voiceless who can't speak for themselves," she told People in 2019. "I want to give them a way to raise their voice and speak out against those things that are happening in their life." She tells 2020 that she was sexually abused by a male relative growing up, ran away, lived on the streets for a time, and at age 18 gave birth to a son, Joey, who she says was later injured by her mother's boyfriend. Social services placed the child in foster care. It's it's a very sad, tragic story.
Well, I mean,
And
he chained them in their room. I mean, and
he
he was
said,
the
"Your families don't care about you."
okay, not only that,
He goes
he
off.
was a band leader in the church. Like he was well respected within the community. People had no idea. His brother, there's interviews you can look him up with his brothers and stuff like that. They people thought he was weird, but they didn't know he was that weird. Like he really kept this secret life.
Yeah, we'll leave some links in the description if you guys want to look up on some more stuff yourselves. It's a very deep topic, and there's so much to it. It happened for 11 years plus. That is so insane.
Yeah, yeah, it went on for a very, very long time. And if you watch some of the interviews with his family that has come forward, they feel very guilty. because there's times that they look back on and they're like, that's what that was, and things like that. It's a very deep story. It's very much like the case in Antioch where the guy was holding the girl, the wife and the husband were holding the girl in the backyard for almost 10 plus years or 13 years, and he fathered a child with her.
Yeah, this woman named Crystal. When Crystal was 16, she met a 33-year-old man named Randy Voller. And Voller sexually abused Crystal multiple times, and he filmed it. And he had, just like with the last story, he had kept her for years as well. She wasn't the only one either. And in February 2018, police arrested Voller on charges including child sexual assault, but then they released him without bail. Just so freaking crazy to me. I don't know why they do that. Voller, a white man, remained free for 3 months even after police discovered evidence that he was abusing about a dozen underage black girls. He remained free until Crystal, then 17, went to his house one night in June and allegedly shot him in the head twice. She lit his body on fire, police said, and fled in his car. A few days later, she confessed. District Attorney Michael Gravely, whose office knew about the evidence against Voller but waited to prosecute him, charged Crystal with arson and first-degree intentional homicide, an offense that carries a mandatory life sentence in Wisconsin. Gravely says he believes Crystal's crime was premeditated. The evidence, he argues, shows that she planned to murder Voller so she could steal his BMW. Crystal, now 19, maintains she was defending herself. Of course she was. Speaking publicly from jail for the first time, she was that when she told Voller she didn't want to have sex that night. He pinned her to the floor. I didn't intentionally try to do this, she said. That is, I think she shouldn't do life in prison. That is insane. I hope someone picks up on this and they help her.
I really dig this chick's style. Like she shot him, set him on fire, and stole his bimmer. Like I think she deserves an award. Like that guy's a monster. She did the state and everybody a
Yeah,
favor. I mean, it's dark, but
right? Right? Her case comes at a time when police and prosecutors across the country are reevaluating how victims of sex trafficking should be treated. This year, Tennessee released Cynthia Brown, whose story went viral in the midst of the Me Too movement. She went to prison at age 16 and served 15 years for killing a man who purchased her for sex. Brown's story, along with the downfall of financier Jeffrey Epstein and singer R. Kelly, reveal what most child sex trafficking actually looks like in America. Vulnerable kids not kidnapped and held captive, not chained and smuggled across borders, but groomed by someone they trust and manipulated into believing they are the ones to blame for the abuse. True. Under federal law, all children who are bought or sold for sex are trafficking victims, regardless of the circumstances. 30 states and the district have stopped charging minors with prostitution. Most states also have a law that gives sex trafficking victims an affirmative defense. If they can prove at trial they committed a crime because they were being trafficked, they can be acquitted of certain charges against them. Wisconsin is one of those states, and Crystal wanted to use that law to defend her actions despite prosecutors' certainty that her crime was her, you know, her lawyer argues she still has a complete defense to the charges, but the affirmative defense law has never been used in her homicide or any other violent crime. Not in Wisconsin, and as far as advocates know, not anywhere else. At this hearing, the judge was going to decide whether it could be. With handcuffs on her wrist, Crystal pulled at the rosary around her neck behind her. The courtroom was filled with her supporters and with the members of Voller's family. Your Honor, her lawyer began, and Crystal listened closely as the men debated what she deserved. That's so sad.
yeah, it's just a
Just after,
complete failure of the justice system. It's sad.
yeah. Like she is the one that called 911. She said fire. She told the dispatcher house is burning. Do you know if anyone is in the house? The dispatcher asked. Within 2 minutes, Kenosha police arrived to find the answer. Inside a badly charred body laid slumply on the ground, there were 2 gunshot wounds in the head. And he deserved it, in my opinion. So she's gonna be, as of now, doing life for doing this. And I guess 3 days later, Crystal live streamed on Facebook and she talked about giving her brother a BMW. She showed off a gun. She told her 20-year-old boyfriend, Delane Nelson, okay, I didn't know this part. You shouldn't be bragging online and all that stuff. I don't want to shoot anybody else, she said. The next morning, police drove a battery ram into Nelson's front door and they found Crystal inside. A shower cap on her head, zip ties were placed around her wrists as she was escorted into a squad car. Her bail was set at $1 million. As they investigated, Crystal detectives were gathering information about Bowler. He lived alone in the cramped 360 square foot one bedroom house. He graduated from high school in 2001 and described himself as self employed. He was 5 foot 8 inches tall and about 200 pounds. His autopsy shows he had been born with missing fingers and toes and a right leg shorter than his left. His parents divorced in 2009, and 3 years later, Voller wore a suit and a red rose boutonniere to the best man for his father, Randall P. Voller, when he remarried at a golf resort. So they're just explaining this man's life, and he doesn't sound troubled or anything. He just sounds like a creep who
Oh
liked
yeah,
little girls of a certain color.
he kind of got what he deserved, but unfortunately, you can't shoot pedophiles legally, and
Yeah,
some
right.
type of ramification, I guess, has to go against her. But like, I really feel like in cases like this, like some type of special judgment has to go through. Like, there has to be something different. Like, you,
Especially with all the evidence, because something that happened in the past was a 15-year-old girl calling from Bowler's house. And she told dispatchers that a man had given her drugs and now he was going to kill her. Then she hung up. Officers found her wandering the streets wearing only a bra under an unzipped jacket, and her pupils were dilated. She said she had taken LSD. The girl eventually told police she met Bowler the year before when he responded to an ad on Backpage.com. The site was one of the country's largest prostitution marketplaces until it was shut down for involvement in human trafficking last year. The girl said Bowler paid her $250 for sex the first time they met when she was 14, then $100 each time after that. She told police he knew how old she was because when she suggested he find women his own age, he elaborated on why he preferred the bodies of young girls like her. In December 2017, the girl ran away from home and moved in with Bowler. He gave her money, took her shopping, and even took her out to dinner with his mother, she said. The girl showed signs of what sex crimes experts call trauma bonding. Bowler was nice to her, she said, and didn't want to get him in trouble. She called him her friend. She said Bowler was sexually abusing other underage girls too and filming it. She'd seen the videos. So this had been happening to her. Other girls police had known. He'd been caught, let out on bail. And then this girl had been so traumatized, had seen everything going on with others, didn't want it to happen, knew he was out, and decided to take it into her own hands. And she was just very,
well, that's where it's like,
she's
there's a lot of people like, okay, you got to hold her to some accountability for killing somebody. I agree with you on that because it's 2020, things like
just
that.
not life.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like,
not
but the
life
other thing
though.
too is there's a complete failure on the police department there. That's who I feel is like
Yeah,
most
because
of
they
the.
have all the laptops, all the hard drives, all the memory cards, along with pajamas, bikini bottoms, and underwear of these girls. So they have all this evidence. It's just insane
Well, this
that he
brings
got
up
let out.
something else like evidence that there was a transparency report from Facebook Inc., the entire corporation that came out just recently. In the report, excuse me, report says that company removed 11.6 million child abuse images worldwide from its social media network July through September of this year, so meaning 2019. Instagram, which is owned by Facebook, removed about 500,000 images.
Yeah, that is way too many. And I laughed just because of how you said Facebook, not at what you said.
Oh, yeah. I'm
But
sorry. That was one of those things that just came out.
yeah, but that is so, yeah. I know when about like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, when I really started getting into Instagram, I noticed hashtags of some of the people that I was following, and I'd click on them, and what would pop up is a bunch of things that related to that hashtag, or that was also that hashtag that other people hashtagged, and it was, like say a girl, for example, a girl posted a selfie and she put hashtag sexy, hashtag hot, hashtag summer, hashtag picture of the day. Well, if I clicked on hashtag sexy just to be like, okay, why is it blue? Why is it clickable? And I click on it, or a kid clicks on it, and it goes to a page where all these people are using hashtag sexy. And there's porn. There's legit porn. And some people use dirty hashtags, I'm not going to say, but I mean, you can see those too. And there's a whole porn section on Instagram. I was just like, my little cousin should not be on this app when there's like, you can easily just click on a hashtag or type in something or accidentally misspell something and be into this whole other world on Instagram. And I bet you not a lot of people know that.
They've
videos and
I've
pictures. It
heard
was
a few
wild.
other podcasts. I mean, Rogan has talked about all the porn that's on Instagram, but it's always, passed in conversation. They've never like focused completely on it. But
Yeah.
a lot of people know. I mean, if you know how to find it, and I'm sure high school kids know how to
Not
find it.
kids, not kids, but like little kids. Unless you come across it, but that is not cool to have you come across that. It's freaking crazy. And I don't know, like, what is the point of that being on that app when it's a social media app? That needs to be cleaned up. It should have. It has been around for years. I'm sure a lot of adults, mm, like, can you picture that? Like, hey, yeah, I just use Instagram for my, session.
Your wank
Instagram,
stash?
what? Right? Like Instagram, what?
You ever heard of Pornhub?
Send me the link. What are you talking about? That's so funny. That's crazy too. But so I think you've heard of this. There was it's headlined "Evil Sexual Predator Jailed for Life for 136 Rapes." He's convicted of 159 sex offenses, including 136 rapes, and will never be safe to be released, a judge has said. He was found guilty of luring 48 men from outside Manchester clubs to his flat, where he drugged and assaulted them, filming the attacks. Police say they have evidence who is being named for the first time targeted at least 190 victims. His name is Sinaga. He's
Yeah, I think
36.
he was drugging him with GHB. I think that's what a lot of the reports said. And the only reason why they caught him is because one of his victims got away, right?
Well, he's the most prolific rapist in British legal history.
Yeah.
Reporting restrictions were also lifted at a sentencing hearing at Manchester Crown Court on Monday, and he was identified for the first time. The postgraduate student was already serving life with a minimum term of 20 years for the offenses he was convicted of in two earlier trials, which took place in summer 2018 and last spring.
Yeah,
Across 4 separate trials altogether.
yeah, releasing his ID is like a much bigger deal in British like justice system because you can get in trouble for releasing IDs before they're completely convicted.
Oh,
But
wow.
if you saw pictures of him, he does not look like the most. I mean, he's almost like Bill Cosby. Like he does not look like somebody that would do this at all.
We'll
He
put
look,
the link below so you guys can see. His picture is very big at the top of the article. It he doesn't at all, and it looks like he really had to target the people that he attacked, because it's not even like, oh, he's probably stronger than he looks thing, because if he targeted a big man, that man would knock him out like crazy, especially if he was looking the wrong way or had an off day. And when you're doing 76 different people,
well, that's why I
not
think
one
they were
of
bringing
them
up was
defended themselves.
they were talking about the drugging and one maybe it was a late article that was linked to it that I read, but I believe he was using GHB, which if you give someone enough GHB, it just makes them completely blackout drunk. And I mean it.
Yeah, 'cause he drugged his victims before assaulting them while they were unconscious. And when the victims woke up, many of them had no memory of what had happened. The student who denied the charges had claimed all the sexual activity was consensual and that each man had agreed to being filmed while pretending to be asleep, a defense described by the judge as ludicrous. At an earlier sentencing, the judge said she was sure that he had used a form of date rape drug such as GHB. Home Secretary Preeti said she was deeply concerned by the use of such drug. Have you heard of this drug before?
Yeah, GHB, it's been around for a long time. I mean, generally it's used recreational just to party, but I mean, there's been numerous cases of people using it in wrong ways, to do things like this. There's also, I
Yeah.
believe he was in London. He was an elderly gay man, and he was drugging
Yeah.
people, and I believe he was killing people, some of them as well, and he was using GHB as well.
Wow. Yeah, he carried out his attacks for over several years. The rapist was caught in June 2017 as well, when one victim who regained consciousness while being assaulted fought him off and called the police. When they found the phone, they had found that he had filmed each of his attacks, amounting to hundreds of hours of footage. And the discovery
Whoa.
led to the launch of the largest rape inquiry in British history.
See, I
That
didn't
is
know
so
the whole part
disgusting.
about the amount of. I heard he recorded the attacks, but I didn't realize how much footage he actually had. That's disgusting.
It's very disgusting. And there's if there, we'll leave some numbers and stuff below. If you need someone to talk to, and you've been through this, or if you're going through something or know someone that's going through something, you should definitely report it. And there's plenty of numbers out there of people that you can talk to and trust.
Absolutely.
I thought was insane is in central Indiana, man sentenced to 200 years in prison for sexually exploiting minors possessing child pornography. I know we've talked about child pornography prior in this pod. This was in Indiana, and it always like catches my attention when things happen in Indiana because that's where we've caught 8 people in one night coming to meet our decoys and myself. So a 54-year-old central Indiana man was sentenced Wednesday to 200 years in federal prison for sexually exploiting a child and possessing child pornography. The first 20 charges relate to the recording of his repeated sexual abuse of his minor victim, and the defendant's sexual abuse of the victim started when the victim was approximately 7 to 8 years old and continued for years, including bondage and torture sessions with choking, whipping, and other forms of pain. So he liked to hurt them. The 20 counts represent 20 images or videos of abuse and exploitation over multiple occasions out of the hundreds of sexual abuse files that the defendant created using the minor. It's really sad, especially with that young. The defendant was a member of various websites devoted to the sexual exploitation of children on an anonymous network, and he participated on various anonymous chatting platforms also, where he met other offenders, shared his produced material, and specifically requested and received child pornography from those users in exchange.
That's it's just really sad. I don't really have words for it right now. It's just really sad.
Yeah, it is sad. Yeah, my point of saying this and what this tells me is that it can be anyone. Like always, it can be anyone. We just need more punishment for sexual predators. Once these guys get caught the first time, it's not the first, because there's 2 stories that we said where they've gotten caught and were still able to be free, and we've said plenty of other stories where it's the same situation in a lot of these cases. More punishment for these guys. Like, come on. Why would you let them out? Why would you even give a bail? Yet someone that, and I'm not condoning it, but selling drugs, stealing a car, shoplifting, even just shoplifting a candy bar because he's homeless, is getting more time, more bail, if a bail, and probation than a predator these days, and it's disgusting.
Part of the problem is police also don't have the ability, because there's something to reference back to that last article about the internet sex crimes in New Mexico going after him. It says the task force members say that long road to success is prosecuting internet crimes against children is similar to other kinds of sensitive investigations. Extensive interviews and researching a suspect's past are key before executing a search warrant. You get one shot to find evidence in these types of cases, New Mexico State Police Agent Jesse Whitaker said, because once a suspect knows what investigators are looking for, they often will try to destroy or hide devices containing images, any trace that they created or distributed them. So I understand that the cops can only do so much, but we as a society, it's almost like we got to get together and change laws, and I don't know how you do that. I'm not saying I have solutions.
It takes us, yeah, it takes us. I think I mentioned this. It takes us for sure. And it takes just a lot of large, I don't know, platforms with voices that are going to have to make it more of a priority because that's the best way to get heard these days.
It's an uncomfortable subject, and I mean, with our group of people, it's a common thing to talk about. But I've noticed
it's a very triggering subject, and more people than people know have been through it and don't want to talk about it, which is totally understandable. But yeah, it's super triggering. So I've heard multiple people be like, oh, I can't watch this or I can't hear this, but I'd love to. And it's just, I totally understand. Totally here for you if you want to talk as well. Our messengers on Instagram and our Facebook and our email is always open.
Yeah, I mean, if don't think that we need to make an episode out of you. If you just need advice on stuff, you can reach out, and if we can't help you, we have other resources to try and help you.
For sure. So I think that does it for this episode. Thank you for listening. Thank you for liking, commenting, and subscribing. We appreciate y'all. We love y'all. And if you've listened to the end, you should give us a comment like hashtag Banana Cats, loyal, A1 day one, whatever you want. But just let us know that you listened to let us know that you listened to the end so that we know who did it. Love y'all. Banana
Much
Cats.
love. Banana Cats. Peace.